I am from the St. Louis area, the Metro East, a town called Highland, Illinois, which is about 20 minutes from downtown St. Louis. Grew up in that area. My entire family is still there. Huge sports fan for St. Louis. Love the Blues, love the Cardinals. I don't even want to talk about the Blackhawks or the Cubs. Huge family person. Our family is always together. Every Sunday night you have family dinner, grandma, grandpa, aunts, uncles, anyone you can possibly imagine. It's every Sunday night. I found Western because I had a love for broadcast journalism, which happened in fourth grade. I remember drawing. They had us draw what you wanted to be when you grew up, and I drew a horrible stick figure with a microphone. And ever since then, that's all I wanted to be. It started out as a meteorologist and then just turned into, I liked the news side of things better. Being from St. Louis, Mizzou is the big name school. It's the journalist school. And my family being from the St. Louis area, we would go to homecoming and so on every year at Mizzou. So I was like, I'm going to Mizzou. It's a shoo-in. And my senior year of high school, my mom was like, let's go check out Western Illinois University. And I'm like, I've been to Macomb multiple times. My aunt moved up here after she graduated from Western 35 years ago. I was like, I am not living in Macomb. I'm not going to Macomb. I'm going to go to Mizzou. And my mom goes, no, I think you should really check it out. It sounds like a really great program, broadcasting program. And I was like, how can it be better than Mizzou? But whatever, I lost that battle. My mom signed me up for the Columbus Day Discover Western. I can still remember it. So on a Monday in October of my senior year of high school. And I was dreading coming up here. I was like, oh my gosh, Mom, why are we doing this? I already have my room. I have my roommate. I'm good to go at Mizzou. Why are we wasting time? Came up here. We came up on a Sunday evening to stay with my aunt and uncle and see them, and then on Monday morning was the Discover Western. And woke up for the Discover Western. I remember dreading it. It was kind of cold. It wasn't a very warm day, and we ended up walking around the campus. And I remember being like, okay, something's different here. And Buzz Hoon was a part of the Discover Western, who is now a big part of COFAC. And he let me touch a camera, and inside of Western Hall, they set up the sports truck, and they gave you a microphone, and they gave you a script, and they were like, go ahead. And I was like, what do you mean go ahead? You mean I can actually talk into the microphone and touch the camera? And they go, yeah. And I was shocked that I wasn't even a student here yet, and they trusted me with their equipment. They were allowing me to touch their equipment. And when we left Discover Western, Mom was right, and Western was the place that I wanted to come because I got to touch the camera that day, and the people here promised me that it was going to be hands-on the entire 4 years at Western, compared to other schools that said, guess what, you're going to have to wait till you're a junior or senior. Some even said you have to wait till you're a grad student to touch a camera. And I don't learn very well if I don't get to be hands-on. And so when it was... when I was told that you're going to be able to go out and shoot games and sporting events or stories, and then you get to edit them yourself and even voice them over, it was a game changer for me. And that's why Western was definitely the right home for me. So UIS, University of Illinois Springfield, I went there for my master's degree after I graduated from Western. And compared to most graduate programs, they might let 200 people into the program, and most of the time it's 2 years. Well, UIS has a very special program, one of the only in the state, and it's called PAR. Some people call it PAR, but it stands for Public Affairs Reporting Program. And what they do is they give you an internship, and you're at the State House, and they don't allow 200 people to be in the program. The year that I was in the program, 2017 through 2018, there was only 12 total students in the entire program, and you had to interview for the program. You had to take a test. You had to go down to U of I Springfield, show what you knew. You had to be able to type a story in a certain amount of time. You had to be able to do a web story in a certain amount of time, and you pretty much had to sell yourself, and you had to study for the test. You got in front of the board of directors, and it was scary. I will tell you that much. I've gone on a lot of reporting stories And that interview still scares me to this day. And that program makes you learn politics. You don't just get to study a book. You have to live and breathe it, because every day you're showing up to the State House, you have an internship, and you have to turn stories. Not only that, but you have to do the web story. You also have to post on social media. You also have to take pictures. Anything that you would possibly think that a normal journalist does, you have to do. And you're doing it while you're going to school. You're doing it while you are trying to finish an entire program. And when I mean a program, it's almost like a thesis. You know, at the end of it, you turn in this massive stack of papers of every story you've done, explaining why you've done these stories and what you've learned from these stories. So you're still doing a 9-to-5 job, normally longer than that since you're a reporter, and no job as a reporter is 9 to 5, and you're going to school, and you're doing something like a thesis to be able to graduate with. It's a 9-month program, and something that is unlike any grad school I've ever heard of. And I'm so glad I did it. I when I was here at Western, I started looking into the program as a sophomore, and it was always that thought in the back of my mind, because eventually down the road I wanted to go back into teaching. I wanted to go back into teaching broadcast and journalism. And so I knew that if I got that master's degree, that job becomes even easier to get. And I was like, I'm just going to do it right out of school. I'm just going to go right into the program. But you had to apply. And that program, I mean, it's crazy. That State House reporting is different than your general assignment. You're there and you might think that the biggest story of the day is abortion, and then about 15 minutes later, all of a sudden they bring up cannabis. And the story that you thought you had at 5 is now, okay, we might mention it, but it's not going to be the lead story anymore. And so being thrown in that mix of these people that have been at the political level for so many years, and all of a sudden you need to sound smart, you need to make sure that you are up with the latest news and knowing what's going on in the State House, and then you got to report it on top of it. It was a life-changing experience as a journalist, and has left me with some great skills that I still use in this everyday life, even teaching. So when I was in this program, they gave us, you had to pick an internship. So I shouldn't say that we necessarily got to pick it. We had to interview. And since everyone in the program might be in a different entity, whether it be newspaper, radio, TV, I was in the TV. So there were 3 different television stations to pick from. And when I was doing the interviews for the State House reporter position for a certain television station there, I already had another job going in St. Louis. The day after I graduated with my undergrad from Western Illinois University, I started as a producer and assignment desk editor in St. Louis at KMOV, the CBS station. Previously, the reason why I got the job was the summer coming into my senior year at Western, I had an internship there. And during my time there, I was a workaholic. They only paid you 28 hours a week, and I probably worked 45 hours a week because I knew you were going to learn more. The more you were doing, the more you were there, the more you were going to learn. So during my senior year at Western, the operations manager called me and said, Emily, we have a job opening. We would like you to apply. And I said to him, this was maybe 2 weeks after I got accepted into grad school. And I said, well, I can apply, but in August I will be going to school in Springfield, Illinois. And he said, okay, you can help us at least get through the summer. You know a lot of our program already. We're not having to train someone completely new, and we need someone as soon as possible because we're going into the summer months. People are going to take vacation. And so here I am ecstatic. How many people that are an undergrad about to graduate get offered a job in the top 25 market? It just doesn't happen in our field. And so I remember saying, okay, I'll apply. And he goes, you got the job. And I go, but you just called me to apply. And he goes, I just wanted to make sure you wanted it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is fantastic. So I graduated on a Saturday from Western, started the job on a Monday. And when I started the job, you know, here I am. I'm definitely the youngest in the newsroom by far, but they knew what I was capable of since I was just there roughly 9 months beforehand, finishing an internship. And so originally the plan was for me to just get them through the summer, and come August when I started grad school, I was going to be done at KMOV. Well, that didn't happen. I told them I was going to start school, and they go, we'll work around your schedule. And I'm like, are you sure? And he goes, what if we just use you on the weekends? What if you work 20 to 22 hours between Saturday and Sunday and you get your hours? So I was working about 11 hours on a Saturday, 11 hours on a Sunday. I would be the associate, I'd be the assignment desk editor, and sometime would help produce some of the newscast on the weekends. And that was fine. It was working because when I was in grad school, we went to school every single day of the week. I had classes every day that first semester. So that worked, and during Thanksgiving break and Christmas break, I filled in and worked almost every single day. And what changed, though, was at the end of the fall semester, they said, Emily, we're having a producer quit. We want you to fill in. And here I am interviewing for my position as a State House reporter. And I'm like, oh gosh, what am I going to do here? And I said, okay, what would the job be? And they said, well, we need a producer, a morning producer. And I'm like, okay, so working 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. I can do that. And they said it would only be 2 days a week, and then you would still work your 20 hours on the weekends, which was fine because I didn't have to work on the weekends in Springfield. So I go back to school in January, starting my internship. And the internship was a dayside reporter. So that means I got to work at 9:30 in the morning and worked until about 6:30 at night. 9:30 in the morning was our meeting for the day to talk about the stories we were going to cover. And while I was there for about 8 months, I had the craziest schedule. From Tuesday to Friday, I was a State House reporter from 9:30 in the morning until 6:30, 7 o'clock at night. And then overnight, I worked in St. Louis and did that for 8 months. And so it sounds like a crazy schedule, and I slept 2 hours a day. So on Monday all day was my class. I went to school on Monday. That's when we had all our grad school classes. So Monday was my day to wear sweats and just kind of chill out. I would work out. I would go to class. Monday and Tuesday, I would have off from KMOV. So Tuesday, I would go do my reporting job from 9:30 in the morning to 7 o'clock at night. I would leave Springfield, and luckily, as I said earlier, I'm from the St. Louis area. So luckily enough that I would drive down as soon as I finished my shift in Springfield, stop at my parents' house. I would take a 2-hour nap on the couch. I would wake up about 10:30 at night, drive into St. Louis, be at work at 11:30, work from 11:30 to 7 a.m., leave the station at KMOV after I finished producing, would go home, take a quick shower, be back on the road by about 8:30, 8:15, 8:30, drive to Springfield and be a dayside reporter and do that all over again, and did that Monday through Friday. Saturdays and Sundays I would do that Wednesday through Friday. Saturdays and Sundays I worked still my 20 hours at KMOV. So that was for 8 months of my life. And back then, when I think about that story, I was like, oh my gosh, I just need a break. Oh my gosh, I'm so tired. Oh my gosh, and I miss it now. I was telling my students the other day the story, and I'm like, kind of wish I could go back to that. And they go, who wants to go back to that? I said, I know, I didn't have a social life. I didn't get to hang out with people. Any free time I had, I would sleep. But it was just the mere fact of your adrenaline running 24/7, being at the State House, working in St. Louis. You didn't want to give up either one of them. So I finished the internship in Springfield, and I continued to work at KMOV for another 3 months after that internship finished, just because it was an insane time. And I think back to, how did you survive on 2 hours of sleep every day for an entire week and still manage to function? Now that that's a few years behind me, I look back and I'm like, you were just insane, but it was awesome. I wouldn't trade it for the world. While I was at Western, I was a part of a handful of different organizations here on campus. There's probably a couple inside the Department of Broadcast and Journalism that are meant for broadcast and journalism students. And I pretty much participated in all of them. NBS, which stands for National Broadcasting Society, SINBA, which is Students of Illinois News Broadcasters Association, and IBA, Illinois Broadcasters Association. There's a couple of them that they want students to get involved with, and that's a great way to talk to students in the state of Illinois, in the region, and even across the country. So during my time here, I was always a member of those organizations, and after I was a member for freshman and sophomore year, junior and senior year, I wanted to be a little more involved. So I became the president of 2 of those organizations. I was the secretary of the other one, and managed to be involved in all those organizations. Turns out that all those organizations later on I would win an award for or from, and competed in each one of their competitions, their student competitions. So each one of those organizations became an important part of me, because here I am carrying a trophy around, or here a trophy is sitting in my room, best reporter, Illinois News Broadcasters Association. So I was definitely really involved with the student organizations on campus that kind of catered to the broadcasting students. Besides those main organizations, the biggest one that I was a part of was News 3, which is the student-run newscast here at the university. And that pretty much takes over your entire life, but in a good way. I started participating in News 3 when I was a freshman. Very little back then. All I did was run the teleprompter, but they told me that was a big job back then, and it was exciting. So over the time that I got more involved with that, and by junior year, I was the meteorologist, I was the anchor, I was the reporter, I was the producer. And it wasn't just me in all those positions. There were other people, but those were the roles that I started to take on. And then by senior year, I was the executive producer. And between me and one of my good friends to this day, her and I were the executive producer over 4 live shows a week. So we were broadcasting a live show Tuesday through Friday. Anything from our Live at 4, which is our normal newscast, to a sports show that aired on Wednesday and a morning talk show that aired on Friday. So that pretty much took up all my time while I was at Western, but it was a great organization to be a part of, and News 3 did wonders for me. I do not believe that I could have done any of the jobs that I've had, or even had half the resume that I have without News 3, because of everything that it had to offer and what it did for me as a journalist and as a person. It's kind of weird how this story came about, how I ended up back at Western. It's not your normal, I was looking for a teaching job. I was looking forward to going back to Western. As I said earlier, when I went to go get my master's degree, I knew that I wanted to use it for teaching. I've always had that thought in my head, going back to Western would be awesome, because the school, the department gave me so much. I had no journalism experience coming into Western. My high school didn't have a broadcast program. We didn't have a local radio station in our town. So I didn't have anything. So the teachers made a big, big impact on me while I was at Western. And in my head, I always was like, I want to do that to another student. I want a student to think back and think, Emily Manley did something for me. Emily Manley made me a better journalist. So that thought was always in the back of my head. When this job was offered to me, I was a reporter in Southern Illinois. And originally, when this job became open, Buzz reached out to me, who at that point was the interim dean of COFAC. He reached out to me. And he said, Emily, we have this job opening. We know you got your master's. Before we offer it before we post it on our website, we want to see if you want the job. Well, that was right when school was ending. And I was like, no, I thank you for thinking of me. I'm going to pass on this. Don't really want to go into teaching just yet. Not done reporting. I have goals for myself, and I didn't hit that goal yet. And he said, okay, well, if you think of anybody, let me know. Well, over the summer, they were contacting different teachers, I guess. Buzz never really mentioned anything to me about, wanting to come here again. That was our one conversation at the end of May, beginning of June. So in August, our company had been bought out by this point, that the station I worked for, and they were coming in and they were talking about contracts. And I knew that I did not want to pursue a contract in that company. I wanted to go on and hit some of my personal goals. And the same day that I had a contract meeting, I believe that I'm a true believer that the good Lord opens doors that you're supposed to enter, and he gives you the right thing at the right time. And that's what one of these moments was. Buzz called me that same day. My phone vibrated. I looked down. It was a text from Buzz. And he said, if you get a second, can you call me? I want to discuss a teaching position. And in my head, I'm like, I already said no, but I love Buzz, so I'll go ahead and listen to what he has to say. Give him a phone call. And he said, we had a prospect for this position that backed out. Well, at this point, school started in 3 weeks, 2 weeks from that time. And I said, okay. He goes, is there anyone that you might have graduated grad school with that you think would want to come in and teach? And I'm like, I'll think about it and I'll get back to you. So the funny part is I had the next 2 days, my family was going down to Kentucky Lake. Everyone, grandma, grandpa, mom, dad, the whole 9 yards, they were all traveling to Kentucky. And so I get down to Kentucky and we have no phone service. I managed to take my phone out on the boat one day, and somehow when we were on the boat, I got just enough cell service that I got a text message from Buzz that said, any luck? Well, by this point, I'd been in Kentucky for 24 hours, and we were having a good time. And I told my family, I said, what if I went into teaching? And they all looked at me and was like, what? And I said, what if I went into teaching? And they laughed, and they said, Emily, you'd be a great teacher. And I laughed then and said, no, I wouldn't. No, I wouldn't. And so we got to talking about it. And so I texted Buzz when we got to that spot, and I had some service. I said, I think I want to talk to you about the position for myself. And he responded back immediately, really? And I said, yes, but I don't have phone service for the next 2 days. I'll call you on Saturday. So I called him on Saturday and I said, I want to hear what your plan is and what the thought process is here. And I think I want to take the job. And Buzz, you could hear the sigh of relief. He's like, Emily, you have no idea how much you just made my day. And I'm like, okay, well, let's figure this out, because school starts a week from Monday and I'm still in my current job, haven't even given my resignation yet. So that happened really, really quick. I turned in my resignation Monday, my last day was Friday, and I started school on Monday. And thank goodness that I was so close to the previous teachers that either had retired or moved on that had given me their syllabus. So here I am, like just typing my name into where it said their name on the syllabus, trying to put a syllabus together to hand out to my students and just tell them, be understanding with me. This is my first teaching gig, and I had about 2 days to put a syllabus together. So when I came back, the job was going to be to instruct the reporting class, the multimedia reporting class, and also be the news director for the student-run newscast, News 3. And News 3 is something very near and dear to my heart because of everything that News 3 did for me and anything and everything that I was a part of while at News 3. So coming back to that position, I was ecstatic. I was like, I almost felt like News 3 was just, it's always been so close to who I am as a journalist. To be able to come back to it, I was pretty excited about that. The whole teaching role, yeah, that scared me a little bit, to be able to, okay, how are you going to teach everything that you've learned in this field? And in my first semester as a teacher, that was the neatest part. I remember going off somewhat of the older syllabus from these other two previous teachers, and I was like, but I need to incorporate social media. And I'd be showing my stories as a reporter. I'd be showing an anchor that I worked with. I'd be showing social media. And it was crazy to me how easy teaching became, because I was able to incorporate those life experiences as a reporter, as a producer, as an anchor out in the field, and bringing that into the students and explaining, guess what? It is a crazy world out there. And as a journalist, you can't even imagine what you're going to go through. So being able to talk to my students about that was such a neat feeling. And with News 3, you feel like there's always going to be that drop off. I came in after a teacher that had it for years and years. So here I am, I got to try to compete and, make the program just as good as it was. And that made me really nervous. Buzz came in on the first day of our newscast as me in that position. And I watched the newscast and I turned to Buzz and I said, "I'm so sorry." And he goes, "What are you sorry about?" I said, "You probably now think, why the heck did I hire her? Because it wasn't a good newscast." And he goes, "That's not at all true." He said, "But I know it'll be different by the end of the semester." And of course, Buzz was right. And by the end of the semester, we were putting on newscast where I wasn't like, oh no, I was finally able to take a deep breath after those newscasts and it was all okay. But coming back to a place that had taught me so much was always something in the back of my mind. I did not expect to do it this soon in my career, but being able to come back and knowing, guess what, this is what News 3 is known for. Guess what, we need to go to city council meetings. And having people in the community remember me, that is such a cool feeling. I met with someone this morning to talk about a project that our department's working on, and they're like, "I remember you, Emily Manley, right?" And I'm like, yeah, it's such a neat feeling to come back and not be that far removed and to have community members remember you and to have people know what you did for News 3, and now they see that you're part of News 3 as an advisor, so they want to help out. They want to talk to your students. It's been a really rewarding feeling being back. One of the best things one of my professors taught me while I was here is the word KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. And I told my students, I said on the very first day, I said, "Did any of you bring a pen?" And they all looked, and I said, "Okay, here's your syllabus. At the very top, you're writing KISS." And they go, "What?" And I go, "It's called Keep It Simple, Stupid." When you're writing broadcast style, that's what I want you to remember. I'm going to show you everything that your English teacher told you not to do. But you got to trust me that that's what this is for. So I use Keep It Simple, Stupid quite often when I'm teaching my students broadcast style writing. And I also feel like what I remember the most about being a student here is you're going to fail as a journalist at some point. The best time to fail as a journalist is now. Make that mistake in the editing. Make that mistake on how you speak or how you say something. That is so incredibly important because once you make that mistake, you're going to remember. One of the other big things is the teachers put in my head attribution. And so I tell my students, I said, I don't care how many times you got to say police say. I don't care how many times you need to say, talk about who this story came from, but that's important. And so attribution is something that I constantly harp on them for because I said the one time you don't use attribution and it's wrong, you're going to be in trouble. So I find it so important to tell them that they're going to make mistakes. Broadcast style is going to be interesting. It's going to be hard, but I'm going to help them with it. And every single teacher that I had while I was here at Western was kind of like my parents away from home. It was a really cool feeling that I could walk in and just be one day like, oh my gosh, this person's driving me crazy. And they would listen to me. And so I want the students to feel the same with me. I said, if you need to feel like you need to come in my office, just sit down and start talking to me about your day. Just, talk to me about a story idea. And because of that relationship that I had with my teachers when I was here, they became these important mentors to me. And I want to be able to build that relationship with students that are here now. And so I always kind of keep the open door policy. Please come in. I have a piece of candy here. I keep granola bars. Come in and talk to me. Tell me about your day. Tell me if this person's ignoring you or they're annoying you. And let's talk about story ideas. So I would say that while I was here, my professors were such great-hearted people and were great journalists that I hope to move forward and keep the same thing to teach my students, and they can feel the same way with me. The city of Macomb, it's a cool place. When I covered city council, Mayor Mike Inman and I, over the span of me covering it for 3 years, him and I had become close. He'd see me all the time. He actually wrote a reference letter for me for grad school. And he said to me, one of my last city council meetings as a senior, he said, I bet you'll come back. I was like, I don't know why I would come back to Macomb right anytime soon because there's not a TV station here and I want to be a reporter. And he goes, I'll just bet you'll come back. So when he found out I was coming back into this position, my phone rang and said, I told you would come back. So coming back to this area, Macomb is such a neat community. I will say I've experienced Forgotonia Brewing a lot. The wine cellars is another favorite of mine, but the coffee shops. I made a goal of myself, because I love coffee, what journalist doesn't, that every Friday I rotate where I get my coffee from in the city of Macomb. And I keep it local. So Sullivan Taylor, The Study, Bold Brew, that's right next to the brewery. That is my thing on Friday mornings. I just rotate. And sometimes I might do a Dunkin' Donuts, but like I said, most of the time it's local. My aunt, who I live with, her and I started this thing when I came back. Every Wednesday night, we go to a local restaurant in town. We might be splitting a dinner. We might be just getting a beer. We might be just having an appetizer, whatever it may be, but that is every Wednesday night. And it's gotten to a point where we can't remember where we've gone. So the calendar at her house, every Wednesday we write down where we went. So that way we're not going to the same one. And that's all local. It's one of my favorite things, and we do that every Wednesday night. Also, while I was back here, they started the speakeasies at the Illinois Museum. And I've gone to a lot of the speakeasies because this town just wants to talk about its history, and I find it so cool. And this is where I'm meeting other people in the community, and I'm learning about more stories for my students. So this town has done a lot for me. My resume is really good because of this town. And so I want to give back to the community in the sense of going and trying the local places, going and talking to the local business people, going to city council, going to Dickens on the Square, or whatever fundraiser might be going on, because the city of Macomb definitely knows how to keep people in this area and definitely knows how to continue their downtown development to keep people engaged and continue to spend money and bring a bright light to the area. When it comes to a word about Macomb, I like the word camaraderie. The people, the community members, the students. Somehow, at some point throughout the year, you get involved. Whether you just might be at the university and you're like, well, I've never really ventured off to do anything in town. And then once you meet the people in town, once you meet the people, whether it be at the brewery or whether it be at Chick's or Sports Corner, or even the bookstore or a coffee shop, the people in the town put a smile on their face. They want to meet you. They want to talk to you. They want you to come out and support the community. And the people in the community support Western like crazy. You know, you might see signs in their yard that say, support WIU. And I think that it's so neat that through good times, bad times, hardships, the university and the community have always had each other. And when I come back, I think of the word camaraderie, because Macomb seems to have those good-hearted people that know how to hold the conversation, that want to be in the community, and that want to support their community while also having a good time and supporting their Leathernecks.